Billionaire Elon Musk purchases Twitter in a massive $44 billion deal, sparking another debate and some questions around free speech and what it means there for the popular social media platform. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV Live Desk. Joining me this morning is Brian Wassum of Warner Crossing Grand Rapids to speak more on the First Amendment, social media, and other topics along those lines. Brian, good afternoon.
Thanks, Luke. Good afternoon to you.
So let's start here with the news of this deal. Twitter, obviously massively popular, 206 million active users, tremendous interaction on that. What does this purchase here by Musk, who's been outspoken on tweets of his own about free speech, mean for the future here of this platform?
Well, it means quite a bit because he's demonstrated that he certainly has the means and the desire to shape the platform according to his own vision. So what Twitter looks like as a practical matter going forward is anybody's guess. He's certainly given us some hints as to what he'd like to do with it. And that has some positive and some negative implications for what he terms as the freedom of speech, which is ultimately what's being served here.
And I kind of want to talk about some of those pros and cons with this purchase on each side of it there. Let's start with the pros for this purchase for Musk.
Sure. Well, I'm excited by some of the things that he wants to do. For example, he has stated his desire to get rid of bots, right? Of automated Twitter accounts that are posting information according to a computer program that aren't real people, that are posing as real people, and seeking to influence public perception that way. We've heard a lot about those kind of bot accounts in all of the news coverage of, alleged Russian interference in elections and things of that nature. And those sort of automated fake accounts spreading propaganda has a real negative impact, a real negative threat to the health of our democratic society, or health of our democratic conversation. So to the extent that he follows through in cracking down on some of those, I'd be excited to see that. I also, a lot hand in hand with that is the idea of authenticating real users. Now, on some other platforms, we see they make an effort to actually require people to use their real names, require them, take some steps to at least partially ensure that the person you think you're talking to is that actual person. Obviously, you can never accomplish that 100%, but the more that we can do to reinforce that idea, again, we're creating a genuine conversation, and that's important for the health of a democratic society.
And on the flip side, the cons.
Yeah, so the flip side, you have the entire platform in one person's hands, a person who I think pretty charitably is mercurial and subject to following whims. So what that ends up doing to the platform, whether that makes it a reliable platform that people even want to use anymore, certainly remains to be seen. I've got a yellow flag, I think, about some of the statements he's made about making Twitter more pro-free speech and cutting down on some of the curbs that the platform, and frankly most every other platform, uses to get rid of fringe speech and speech that isn't genuine political conversation. So harassment, IP infringement, spreading demonstrably false information, things of that nature. Those are curbs that Twitter now uses, and then again every other social media platform uses to try and keep the conversation accessible to everyone and reliable. And to the extent that with his comments he means that he wants to get rid of some of those, that could cause the conversation to be less helpful, less reliable, and less beneficial to democratic society.
What are you hoping, kind of having listed both of those pros and cons now, what are you hoping will come from this here in 6 months, a year, a couple years, even down the line?
I'm hoping to see innovation for one thing. Twitter hasn't really changed much of its method of interacting for a long time. And frankly, the little sound bites of information that go out on Twitter aren't always conducive to real public conversation. People have found their ways around that with tweet storms and tweets that go on for 10, 20 tweets in a row. But I think something that creates a platform for a little bit more engagement, a little bit more nuance in conversation. And if we can get to a point where we have verifiable users, we have curbs in place that allow us to have free but moderated conversation, free but accessible conversation, and people actually buy into that idea, and this kind of jumps into the fray along with some of the other innovations we're seeing on other platforms, and this actually causes people to buy into the idea of having meaningful conversation, meaningful debate, then that would be great to see. But ultimately, no social media platform is going to be the solution for all of our democratic ills. And I'd ultimately like to see people start talking to each other face to face more often. And if turning them off of Twitter through all of this is what causes that to happen, well, then maybe that's a good thing too.
At the end of the day, Twitter is a business. What does this mean when the conversation of the First Amendment comes into play with free speech? Is this a win for free speech? Is this a loss for free speech? Obviously, we know how Elon sees it, but in general, win or loss?
It certainly remains to be seen. I am, like I said at the outset, cautiously optimistic that it will end up being a net positive. The people who do participate in the platform hopefully will have more reliability in the conversation, more genuineness in the conversation, to know who they're talking to and what's being said. In that the things that they're hearing are from real people and not from bots and not from algorithms. One other thing that Elon's mentioned is he wants to disclose the algorithms, the secret sauce behind how Twitter chooses what opinions to show you. And we've heard a lot about algorithms lately in the debate too, because they are what really drive us a lot of the most objectionable content, a lot of the content that kind of fuels the most division in our public conversation, because that gets more eyeballs, that gets more reaction. And there's talk in Congress of regulating those algorithms. There's discussion on whether those algorithms actually deserve free speech protections. All good conversations. And Elon could move that conversation forward by following through on this promise to show everybody, here's how we operate, here's why you're getting what you get, and maybe here's what you can do to change that. Well, then people have a little bit more agency, a little bit more control about the information that they're getting, or can release some of those restrictions and get more opposing viewpoints, which is something we don't get nearly enough of online. And maybe that helps the conversation. But all of this is still so speculative that it really remains to be seen how well he follows through. I mean, Elon promised us we'd be on Mars by now, so I think we've all learned to take his promises with a bit of a grain of salt.
Absolutely a time will tell type of situation, without a doubt there. Brian, we appreciate your time. Anything else that you'd like to put out there?
Just that, again, social media is not the end-all be-all of conversation. The more we learn about digital media, the more it becomes an integral part of our life. The more we realize that it's not everything in life, and that real face-to-face conversation and getting opposing viewpoints, not relying on just our favorite Twitter streams, is really the way to inform ourselves and make sure that our democratic society continues to be healthy.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you tuned in maybe halfway through the stream or just now clicking in here, you can click the link attached to the stream. If you're viewing on Facebook, it'll take you over to woodtv.com. You're able to find our full conversation right there for you. Brian, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Take care, Luke.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you around.